Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Mike's DVDs and Blu-rays collection. Today we're going to talk about some documentaries involving the film world, Hollywood, involving actors, directors, cinematographers. I've got some interesting documentaries. I got four I want to talk about. So let's get right to it. First one I want to highlight here is a movie called Side by Side. I first saw this on Netflix. It's really good. It's a movie talking about the industry moving into digital, moving from film elements to digital elements, and talking about can Hollywood survive such a huge transition to digital. And it also talks about some of the directors who love the large film format of 2:3:5:1 ratio CinemaScope. People that want to work with film organically, like it should be. It's kind of it's not really a debate. I mean, it kind of has, talks to some, directors that only want to use film if they can. I mean, and they hold out until they can. I mean, one of those directors is God, I can't think. I'm forgetting his name. Who made the Batman movies? Christopher Nolan. He released a few of his movies in IMAX. In fact, I mean, he not only stayed in 35 millimeter or 70 millimeter, he went all the way to IMAX to release a few of his films and stuff. So he's one of the people that have now become almost a rebel in Hollywood. Wanting to keep the formats of the past, relevant in really making the debate that, we should still have film. People should know, new directors coming, on board should be able to work with film and know all the stuff. It talks about some of the older directors who would work their way up, learning all the different trades, starting as an editor and then a cinematographer and then a director, and talking about all different things. It's hosted by Keanu Reeves, and some of the people they talk to is James Cameron, David Fincher, George Lucas, David Lynch, Robert Rodriguez, Martin Scorsese, Steven Soderbergh. I think Quentin Tarantino might appear in there, but it's a very good documentary. And I think actually Keanu Reeves was one of the producers of this. Yeah, he was one of the producers, and it's really good. It's made through the Tribeca Film Studios, but yeah, it's very good. It's a 99-minute documentary with a lot of extras. So there you go, Side by Side. And next up, this is a documentary that I actually saw on PBS. PBS has had some really good documentaries. They have a series called The American Experience, where they they'll talk about a notable figure in history, either it be a sports figure, movie, politics, architects, painters, anybody that's, a creative force from, in America, just telling their story. But this was a PBS story, documentary. It's called These Amazing Shadows, Movies That Make America. And it's really, really good. This is an ex-library copy. It's basically... It basically, here's a little bit about, what it says on the back here. It says, what do films Casablanca, Blazing Saddles, and West Side Story have in common? Besides being popular, they also have been deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. by the Library of Congress and listed in the National Film Registry, a roll call of American cinema treasures. For more than 2 decades since the passage of the National Film Preservation Act of 1988, the Library of Congress, with input from public and advice from the National Film Preservation Board, has selected 25 films every year to add to the registry. So basically, they're talking about, since 1988, all the films that get nominated and put into the National Film Preservation, into the Library of Congress, as a significant movie of some sort that has been deemed culturally significant. So it's really fascinating how they go about choosing and, the job of finding these movies and, choosing them and getting them. And really it shows also how movies are preserved, how they're stored now. And there's a massive place in Virginia. It was a salt mine originally, and they're kept at a temperature, some of the nitrate films and stuff like that. So it's really, really fascinating. If you love film like I do, it's really fascinating. So it's called These Amazing Shadows. Next up, I had a whole episode dedicated to this documentary, so I thought I'd bring it up again in case you missed it. But man, this is an amazing documentary. This is a documentary called Z Channel, A Magnificent Obsession. I did a whole episode about this documentary. This is a great package. This is a DVD. I don't think it's never been released on Blu-ray, and it's just loaded. It's loaded with bonus stuff on here. It's got 2 discs. The first one's got the documentary. The second one's got just tons of interviews, stuff that they left out of the documentary. But it's about the Z Channel, which was a channel that started in California, Los Angeles. Even more, it really kind of centers on the programmer of Z Channel, Jerry Harvey, who he was the who's who of movies at the time. Just like people were loving the Z Channel and what he programmed and put on there, and movies could be reborn by Jerry Harvey at times. Movies such as Once Upon a Time in America, Sergio Leone's gangster epic. Didn't do so well in the box office. It was cut and everything, and then when it premiered on the Z Channel, it was recut back to the director's cut and everything, and it was shown on there, and it kind of got a boost. It got popular again. People started wanting to go see it. I believe it got re-released, made a big splash on home video, but yeah, it kind of shows in that example of the power of the Z Channel and what it could do and stuff. It was basically kind of like HBO in the early days of cable and the cable wars and stuff. HBO came on in the 70s, and in the 80s, you didn't get every channel like you do nowadays. You don't get all the apps, and it's easy. But back then, certain channels were only available in certain areas, and then you had to pay for certain channels and stuff like that. Because I remember as a kid, we paid like $4.95 a month for HBO back in the 80s, which would be the equivalent of like $12 now for an app, now. So, but Z Channel was primarily in the LA area, in California. I can't, as much as I love this documentary, I can't remember if it was shown anywhere else in any other, other cities across the country. But big influence on filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino, and some of the younger directors coming up out of the 80s and stuff. It was such a huge influence on them, because it because the channel would show movies from, foreign cinema. They would show westerns. They would show cult movies. Really the best of the best of. Kind of like Criterion. Kind of like what the Criterion channel is now, sort of. It's like that. But yeah, they would. It kind of shows the rise and fall of it. And some tragic events would happen around Jerry Harvey, the programmer. So it's very, very interesting documentary. I really recommend this, you guys, if you haven't seen it, to check it out. It's a great story. It's just a great documentary. Whew. I'm passionate about that movie, guys. Finally, this is a Blu-ray of a documentary called Dawson City, Frozen in Time. It's a film by Bill Morrison. This was released on Kino Lorber. This is a fascinating story. It takes place in Alaska, Dawson City, Alaska, and it goes back to the early 20th century when filmmakers were all over the place. They were, little companies would crop up and start making, some silent movies for Nickelodeons and stuff, and all little cities they would crop up. What's fascinating is in Dawson City, it was like a remote place in Alaska during like 1915, the early days of movie, 1910. And they had a theater there, and they would show all these movies. And a lot of times, once the movies kind of made their way all through theaters, and after about a year of release, they would basically come back to the studios that made them, and they would basically chuck them. They would just, throw them away, or they would reuse the nitrate, the silver that's in nitrate. So a lot of times they would take them and dump them in the ocean, like all these movies that are just lost now. Just lost. So many silent movies are gone. But what's fascinating about Dawson City is it was a movie theater, and once I think it caught on fire, it burned down. They built it as an ice skating rink, and they had all those movies still stored there, all these rare silent movies, and they basically threw all of these movies, like hundreds and hundreds of movies, like basically the equivalent of a swimming pool. They basically put it all in there, what was the ice skating rink, and basically filled it in. And then time went by, almost 100 years later, and it shows a couple of people started researching and trying to locate this, like a archaeological site, and they started digging and finding some of these movies, buried where the rink was, where the theater was, and everything. So they rescued a bunch of silent movies that existed. They were just gone, and these were the only copies of these movies and stuff. So it's a fascinating documentary. If you love film, especially if you love silent movie, and the plight of many silent movies that were lost, you'll definitely want to check this movie out. It's really, really good. I think I saw this on Netflix also many years ago, but this is a really good movie. It really, really is, and it's got a lot of bonus stuff on here. It's got some interviews, but yeah, it's a fascinating story of just how the city got involved later, and it's just great. So there you go. There's 4 more really cool documentaries that I think you all should go out, find them, watch them. You might be able to stream them now, but check those out. I really recommend them, guys. So there you go. So I hope you liked this episode. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, subscribe. Click the bell. By doing so, you'll know when I release episodes. You'll be the first to know that I've released a new episode. And as always, guys, comment, let me know what you think, and questions, comments, just let me know. And that's about it, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Take it easy out there. Be safe. And discover a cool documentary like these. And until next time, guys, I'm Mike. Thanks for watching. And I will see you guys again.